Hello, Internet. This video is a response to Kyle Hill and his Nerdist videos over the past year or so. Now, I have some qualms. I've noticed a few things. And although I don't think that they should show up in the corrections, this is mostly my own opinion. And I have some evidence to back it up, but it's not perfect. Okay. There are three things that Because Science loves to talk about: Thor's hammer, Superman, and lightsabers. Three really popular topics. I have a theory that says they all have a common thread. All right. And that they don't work quite the way we expect in our standard perception of things. Now, the common thread they have is conditional properties. I have some, like I said, I have some evidence for this. And it doesn't necessarily mesh with Thor's hammer meshes with the most current interpretation of everything. But Superman, and to a certain extent lightsabers, don't necessarily mesh with all the data that's out there. But bear with me. Okay. Let's start with the lightsaber. What would its conditional properties look like? Well, a lightsaber, as Because Science has said before, is most likely a plasma-based weapon using an electromagnetic confinement field. Now, I found this a really compelling argument. However, Because Science, I don't know if anybody on their staff has ever worked with welding tools. Oh, wait. Kyle worked on Mythbusters: The Search, so yes, somebody definitely has worked around welding tools. The big thing about welding torches and anything else that works with plasma responds to compression by getting hotter. Well, then again, everything does because of Boyle's law. But the confinement field that a lightsaber would necessarily have just to exist in a confined space and not burn everything up like they showed in their video. In order to do that, as Because Science demonstrated, a lightsaber would have to be seriously electromagnetically confined and they said it was to the point where it either would be useless or it would burn everything up as soon as it touched anything. And I thought of a cigar, a lit cigar. Now, or even a soldering iron. Soldering iron is an even better example. Soldering irons do not transmit heat very well. They're fairly insulated by the electromagnetic properties of the welding point or the soldering point. But as soon as you give them a conductor for that heat energy, they melt it very quickly. I feel that the lightsaber would do the same thing via compression. That the electromagnetic field, when encountering a solid object, would compress. And given how hot the plasma in its interior is, that the insulating ability of that lightsaber would diminish. Also, why it takes either robotic precision or a Jedi skill to effectively wield one when you're not slicing a tauntaun on Hoth. Because, and this has been demonstrated until the current franchise, that not knowing how fast to draw the lightsaber through an object could very well create the type of effects that Kyle and Because Science talked about in their What Would Really Happen to Qui-Gon Jinn video. Okay, now let's move on to Superman and why I feel his power set is similar, that it's governed by a condition. I have a feeling that Superman's power set is actually psychometric telekinesis. Let me break that down. I believe that Superman is actually a telekinetic, that he is actually moving things with his mind, with his mental energy, that he is putting out in a radiative field around himself. And going back to the 1940s comics, he didn't know he could fly, so he couldn't. That's why he was limited to jumping at first. He had to learn that he actually could repel himself from the earth. And that he could do a whole bunch of other things. It also explains how he could shave. Now let me get this for you. All right. The razor that is shaving the stubble off of his face becomes as hard as he needs it to be to cut that stubble. He doesn't have to. Also in the series Lois and Clark, he talked about and explained why his clothes never disintegrate, even though he's doing all this crap, and it's still just ordinary cloth. And the explanation they gave is that there seems to be an invulnerability field about 18 inches from his person. The only explanation I could come up with this is that he's actually telekinetic and doesn't know how to use it. The only way he can think to use it is when he touches an object, he moves it. All right? And it also explains why a disillusioned Kal-El comes back from the remains of Krypton and is wrecking shit, because he still doesn't understand how the radiation from our star Sol is affecting his person. He's ripping things apart because he doesn't remember. Well, he obviously does, but the writers have obviously forgotten that when Superman touches an object, he can move said object without incurring physical damage. He did that. He showed us by stopping a speeding train. He showed us by stopping a speeding train in the first Superman movie, he showed us by saving a helicopter, etc. Okay. Now, the last one, Mjolnir. Oh, my favorite Mjolnir. I have a reconcilable explanation for what happened in Ragnarok. What happened in Ragnarok, the Mjolnir we know from the comic books, and the Mjolnir we know from the other MCU movies. Okay. Now, and the evidence, a lot of my evidence comes from the earlier MCU movies. Okay. Item number 1. Odin never has a single reason for doing anything. He always has multiples. Thor picks his hammer. And it's explained in Ragnarok that Odin had him choose a weapon to limit his power. Well, or to make him controllable. In Age of Ultron, we have three Avengers debate what worthiness is. And we get some clues. Vision picks up the hammer. What is Vision? Vision is two pieces. Vision is a synthetic body that is being inhabited by an artificial intelligence, i.e. Jarvis. Jarvis is a translation matrix, first and foremost. He makes sure that Tony doesn't need to read any languages but English and engineering. He's a translation matrix first. So, the first time that he had full contact with Thor's hammer, Mjolnir, is after he gets his synthetic body. In fact, Thor powers the imbuement of that body with a self-sustaining battery. So he already technically has the power of Thor. But let's take that aside for a moment. What is the power of Thor? Thor's power is the birthright of Odin. All right, that's my theory. Thor's power is the birthright of Odin. That's why Hela has it. That's why Thor has it. That's why Loki doesn't have it. He's not Odin's son. Vision has it because Sparky sparked him to life. But even if he hadn't, I suspect that in the mix of science and sorcery that is the MCU, that Mjolnir is a coded computer and is operating on conditionals. Those conditionals, I have very little doubt, have to do with the will of Odin himself. That's why, after Hela struck Odin down, assuming that was the only thing, and it wasn't a birthright at all, assuming that was the only thing, after Hela struck Odin down, of course she could destroy the Uru hammer, because all of the coding that was conditional on the mind of Odin went poof. Also, the way Thor's hammer becomes heavier and moves itself around. Here's the other one. I have a feeling that there is a miniature version of the Tesseract coded into the metallic structure of Thor's hammer, and that the star that it's constructed from is actually gaining and losing small amounts of mass via Tesseract directly connected to Thor's hammer and to Mjolnir at the will of its user. That being said, it's not actually becoming heavier. It technically has the full mass of a neutron star all the time. It's not becoming heavier or lighter. It is allowing that mass to move through space with greater or less momentum relative to the source of its mass. All right. Let me know what you think. I hope everybody's watching. I hope somebody forwards this to Kyle Hill. That would be awesome. I would love to hear from you. Big fan also. All right. And hey, it's a video made in the front seat of someone's car. Have a nice day. This has been Mariska's dad. Peace out.